This is the January 18th, 2023 meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission. It's a regular meeting, our first meeting of the year, so happy new year to everyone. This was a really long time ago since we met. I guess we just were 1 week earlier than normal in December. I don't know, it just feels like a long time, so it's great to see everybody. And everybody is getting off. I know you were a little bit sick, Susan, but hopefully everybody's healthy now. All right, first order of business is approval of the minutes of our December, and here's Janet.
Janet, I want to send that down.
Janet. Thank you. Officialness down. Okay, so we have the minutes that were sent around for review. Does anybody have any?
Yeah, page 4, I think it's around the 8th or 9th line. The committee expressed blank that Pear Tree Point Beach most urgently needs.
Which
Should say the opinion.
could you, like, what is the paragraph start with? My page
Is it
didn't
the first
come out with
paragraph?
numbers.
First paragraph, page 4.
I might have printed differently. What words does it start with?
Committee?
The paragraph starts with committee?
Under
Committee
capital
starts with Ms.
improvements.
Flora. Discuss and vote on capital improvement projects.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're right. This is the-
Yeah,
I don't see it either.
Mine printed like really teeny.
Yeah, mine's.
it's on the top of page 4 of.
Oh, wait, top of page 4, okay, thank
It
you.
says discuss and vote on capital improvement projects.
Okay, and it's that first paragraph?
Yeah, it's about the 9th line, I believe.
Okay.
The committee expressed, and it's
Oh, yeah, I see
missing
it.
probably the opinion
Express
that Pear Tree Point Beach most urgently needs work.
What's missing?
There's a blank expressed that,
The committee expressed that,
well, the opinion.
Oh, right here. Committee expressed that Pear Tree Point Beach most urgently needs work.
It should be a priority.
Yeah.
Or priority,
no.
something.
Committee expressed.
That, the 3-point beach most.
So what would you like it to read?
The opinion?
The opinion of the
Expressed.
committee.
Well, the committee expressed the opinion.
Oh.
that
Expressed the
Pear
view?
Tree, the view.
Anything else? Anybody? Everything else is?
I thought it looked good.
The only thing that I don't think I would have said this, but I won't swear that I didn't say it. But on the discuss and vote on the operating budget, in the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, so the brief discussion regarding remaining 18,000 of beautification funds, which we'll talk about tonight. Does Ms. Bora confirmed the funds will be used in the spring? I don't know if they confirmed if they would be used. I think I said that they needed to be used. I won't swear either way.
If that's what you
I'm
meant.
okay with the change, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
needed to be used.
The
Got it.
funds.
Yeah, that,
Maybe,
you did
I
say
think
that.
it'll be will need to be used.
Will need to be used.
Will need.
I actually remember
to be
actually you
used in
saying
the
that.
Spring, right, in other words, if it's use it or lose it.
Yeah,
Right.
you said that, yeah.
So,
And that's what you
But,
expressed.
I don't know that I would have affirmatively said it, because,
You would know.
yeah.
You can say it, but you're right. You said that. I
Excuse me,
remember
is
that.
channel 79 live right now?
Well,
Only upstairs? Oh, okay, because Tamara was trying to watch.
Oh.
She can't. Okay.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, then can we get a motion to approve as amended? Mary Louise, second? Amy, all in favor?
If I wasn't there, do you want me to vote or what's the?
I read Robert's rules of order that says you can vote because you're voting to accept the minutes,
Got it, okay.
so. All she missed was the minutes.
I think I have you on the
Excellent, okay. All right, next, we have public comment. Do either of our two audience members have anything to comment upon? No? Everyone move on.
This is the right, I got a phone call from somebody. Is this the right moment to set up a phone call?
Sure.
Okay. I got a call call complaining that the pickleball was making a lot of noise.
And that's the first? I've read so many articles in the paper,
Oh,
and
yes.
magazines about
That's
noise,
a normal.
Waiting for
noise
for-
complaints, and I was thinking, wow, I can't believe we haven't had any at
Yep, so I
Jared.
got my first one.
Wow.
What are we gonna do?
Just voices or?
Oh, no.
music, or all the dinks?
Think all day long.
Yeah.
It's not at night, it's just during the day, right? Because
Well,
it's
they
not-
There's no
go,
lights.
there are no
There's no
lights, but
lights.
they go pretty late and they start very early, you know.
I know.
So, and it is consistent.
So
It's
husband's
definitely consistent.
terrace, the sun's coming up.
Yeah. So I don't know what we do about that, but I'm just passing on that I've gotten my first complaint.
Darren is not immune to pickleball noise. I don't know, because I've noticed it at paddle tennis that some people actually put on they bring their little boom boxes and actually play music while they play.
No, didn't say anything about that, just the
Maybe
ball
music would be
noise.
better.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's better?
I don't know,
The
I
music
think
or that?
that's I think she said it was like dink, 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 dink. I don't play pickleball.
It is a.
It's a hard, yeah, it makes a very definite noise.
It is common, it's a common
It's a common
complaint
thing, yes.
amongst towns.
What do they do about it?
It's a park.
And you can't close it in or anything.
I mean, we hope the trees might absorb some.
And I can't tell you, I've never researched if there's anybody,
Right, I
a
don't know.
solution, so perhaps I can put somebody on it in the office. And see if there is something.
Thank you for sharing. Sure.
Because you're right, there's fence around it. So maybe if something was around the fence as like a wind protector, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Never
I just don't know
feel
if it's a
very-
problem
that
going
keeps
on.
s-
They must have somebody must have figured out a solution to it. But you're right, trees are always great.
Yeah. Okay. Next order of business is the fee schedule for 2023. We discussed it at the December meeting. Pam went over her proposed changes. Let's just touch on the pickleball first, because we've got April to October with a reservation. So is that correct, that we're presumably going to do some portion of the week is reservations and some is non-reservations?
That's
So
what
that would just be
Trying to work out.
the
We have a schedule like
Okay.
this. And so we just really started the conversation, but Cassie's done a lot of work with a big spreadsheet. She's been back and forth, but, so now we're trying to figure out whether our software will allow us to operate the way we want to operate in terms of like, right now we know it will set aside a block time. So it's not giving residents, like what we want is 3 reservations within that block time of an hour and a half, right? So, but the way paddle is you got a block and then people can go in and just reserve the time within that block.
Right.
That works for them. So then maybe you only get 2 reservations out of that block time.
Yeah.
But ideally, it would be nice to have the 3,
Yeah.
right? So according to the software today, they can't do that, but we're trying to see how we could use the software in a different way that would allow us to do it. So we're on it.
But there would still be periods of time that people just.
Open play,
Sure.
reservation.
Okay, and then there wouldn't be.
Yes, and I can share that with you when we feel quite positive that that looks good.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll share it with you.
Sure. Okay. The other things we had talked, a couple of things we had talked about, I want to do some follow-up. One was about the possibility of offering free permits to a military resident. As you recall, we had some discussion whether we meant active duty or any veterans. Tamara, who's been very helpful on many things, and she said she can't listen to it, but I'm going to give that plug. She's just been a really great resource on researching and helping with a number of things. Was not able to find out any way to get the number of active duty military members in town, but she did find out that there are 600 veterans based on the most recent information, which is quite a lot. So to translate that, at 600, at the 50, that would be $30,000 worth of revenue that we would be foregoing, which is, give or take, about half of what Pam's needs to fund that new position. So it is meaningful. And then in terms of, if everybody took advantage of that, depending on, if you look at how many stickers we sell in a given year, which it goes up and down, it's between kind of 6.5% and 7%. So it's pretty meaningful. So I just think we need to be very mindful of that, given how much we're asking for in terms of capital projects this year, a new position, et cetera. It's a pretty significant give up. Now, in theory, there is some overlap with either a volunteer fire person or 65 and over that are already getting free, so it probably wouldn't be the full amount, but we can't quantify it. But it just is a notable number, so I do think we need to really think about in the context of the budget. And if we don't collect the money, the kind of town budget is what it is. It's got to come from somewhere else. So I just wanted to be mindful of that. But that we need to decide on tonight. I mean, another option would be to, maybe do it at a somewhat reduced amount. Maybe not completely free, but maybe something less. So just think on that for a few minutes. And then the other thing that we've talked about, which we can't vote on tonight because it requires a public hearing, art rules rewrite, whatever, was the concept of allowing non-resident Darien town employees. And again, Tamara did some research and was able to get the number from the Director of Human Resources in town, and the total number of people currently that are not residents is 846. So we're talking a lot of people. And again,
A school, library, town.
it's mostly school. That's the biggest bulk of it. But again, you add that on with 400 new apartments. And the Pear Tree project, whenever in the next 5 years we can get that funded going, that actually reduces parking spaces. So you'll remember that not quite this time last year, but even less than a year ago, we submitted a letter to the state, rejecting the concept that we should, not price differentiate on parking for non-residents because of our limited parking capacity, the narrow streets, they're all one-way streets that go down to our beaches. Pear Tree has no sidewalks, there's high traffic, whatever. So again, I'm just very mindful that that's a big number. So,
May I just add? So even if it were half of that, on the revenue point, it would be about $35,000 that would help maintain, the beaches. And, Lori and I have kind of gone back and forth about this. And my first 4 or 5 years here, when we already were allowing town residents to, get a beach pass, recall any capacity issues. When we looked at 2020 and 2021, obviously through the pandemic, it was the smartest thing to do because everybody was home. So just throwing that out there too. Because I certainly, when we're putting forth the Wheat Beach Meadow and Trail project, it has been asked to me if there is any way to have, additional revenue. And certainly I will project what I think we could do with the property. There's also that.
But if we're getting new residents, that would be paying the 400, let's say we get 400 new families, that
Right.
would be
Yeah.
part of that revenue stream too.
right, you got to assume that but you would guess that the majority of
Well,
those
I-
projects
one.
will buy at least
Yeah.
one, and maybe only one because they probably have very limited parking. They probably parking, whatever.
And the current exceptions to paying a fee are seniors or over 65 and anything else?
Post
Our
53.
post 53, our firemen.
And there's no reason why we can't charge a larger fee for non-resident town employees.
You all know I have hesitations about that, and it's a volume issue. It's really a volume issue, especially when you know we're adding volume in terms of number of residents, and the meanwhile, our plan and our approved, and remember the plan for Pear Tree, it's now an approved plan by CTD. It's kind of locked, it's like a locked plan. You can't just go and say, oh, well, now we want to do this or we do that. So, you know, we just don't know what all that is going to look and feel like as we add all this capacity to town, so I'm very hesitant about it. You know, if there's a few people who, you know, really feel strongly about this, you know, maybe we think of some other kind of options, you know, could we offer it as a weekday only? I mean, the big proportions, the Board of Ed, many of those people don't work in the summer, so yes, you can come to our beaches and buy a pass for the weekdays. You know, avoid the peak periods, and maybe it's a weekday and 2 weekends a summer or something. Just to stagger it, or you said, like, we're gonna offer, I'm making this number up, 50 and it's a lottery, something like that. But I think if a couple people want to work on some options that we could maybe offer something, but, you know, really ease into it, and then we still, again, have to have the public hearing and update the rules. But I'm just very concerned, especially when we submitted testimony to the state about our limited parking, to now open it up to 850 people.
Buchanan does the lottery for their pool, so I know a lot of Darien people, you know, try to get in that lottery to get a pass for their pool. and
If
stuff.
there's capacity though, that's only if they have room.
They did like, from what I understand, it
No,
was
it's always
100.
like, no, they told us that when they put it up, that it's only if they don't sell all the
Okay.
passes to residents, then they open up to non-residents, that would be Darien people or whatever. But going back to what you're saying, Lori, I think you have a really good point about capacity. Right now, it's really unknown what our future is, and I'm a little hesitant for that reason, because I don't want to degrade, you know, like not have room for people that have already paid that are residents, you know. So I think as, you know, the town commission, our first is to kind of provide services to our residents, and we do have a lot of free residents coming. So these projects will be done in like a year. Like, is this something we could talk about next year, that we'll have a better idea of how many people are actually using, or is it 2 years from now?
About the schedule.
I mean, it looks like stuff is happening. I mean, it's like,
I
you know,
have
it's
it,
all-
okay.
looks like-
I got updated information from Jeremy Ginsburg within the last month or so. It's a net, if you include the, what I call the Old Town Hall project, which is now the Royal, that's done. And that was a net, so there were 409 new units planned, but that building was, you know, torn down, so that was reduced by 30. So it's sort of a net new amount planned is 379. And that includes, even including Parklands, which is, you know, in the much earlier stages. But, you know, in 2022, so we had 23 that are already occupied. 2022, another 61 became available. And that's the first wave over where Stop and Shop used to be. So those are, you know, in leasing right now. 61 apartments. The other 61 at Federal become available this year. 20 at Corbin will become available, so that's 81 this year. And then 2024, another 48 units at Corbin. And then 25 is
I'm sorry,
another
how many of this is the next one?
48.
48.
48 next year. And then in 2025, another 164.
And then I guess the other thing to consider is that if we're making improvements at Pear Tree and Wheat Beach, that it might increase like usage, like people might start coming. Like when we redid Wheat Beach, it wasn't very high. It just seemed like we had this huge bump when we redid the whole playground and all that, you know, the paddle building and also the bathhouse. So I really feel like if we do anything in the next year or two, that also will increase demand on some level, even by existing people, not just by new people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, and I think that was part of the reason when we were doing plans, we try to kind of think about things like that, forecasting in the future. We don't know, you know, if people are going to use it, but our hope is that the work we're doing here is going to lead to that, right? So it's a good forward-thinking, you know, idea, so.
So I want to share with you, that's something the town employees, it's something we can't really vote on now because our rules don't allow for it. So it requires work, and again, if a couple of people are very passionate about this and want to come up with a couple of options that might let us dip our toe in the water or whatever, certainly we can revisit that. But we can't vote on a fee for something that doesn't exist in the rules.
So if that's the case where somebody wants to on the commission, so how would that work? So that's next month? How
Well,
do you
hopefully they
envision-
just come back with a couple of different ideas and present them, as again, I think we'd have to have a public hearing about it, because, let's face it, people worry about beach capacity, we do get comments about, certainly allowing folks from out of town on the beach. I mean, we had a comment at our meeting last month from one of the Parks and Rec committee members that felt that we should have the guard at Pear Tree for longer into the fall season because out-of-towners were coming, when that is able capacity. So there are concerns about that.
Could we, I mean, is there space for potential subcommittee or something else like that, or at least for us to break it off from this? Because I think there's a lot of discussion.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If a couple people want to put their heads together and
Okay.
work on it and then come back with some ideas or something that
Yeah,
we
'cause
might.
I mean, to me, it sounds like you can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? Like, whatever the decision's made, and if we make the decision too hastily, not knowing what the future developments
Right.
look like, it could be
Yeah,
detrimental.
And our office will start getting phone calls.
Of course.
Right.
Come March.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess my question is, what is the demand for each of these requests?
we don't know.
Yeah.
That's the issue, is we don't know, but, you codify it in the rules. It's not saying we can't change our rules and take it back out, but it's harder. That's why I was just brainstorming myself about a couple of different options that maybe we could offer a little bit of something or whatever. So I said, weekdays you could say, because Pam, you said one of the things early on that people says, well, we'd like to go down during our lunch hour. If town hall employees want to go down to Weed or Pear, we should be able to figure out a way to do that.
Except we don't have a lunch hour anymore.
Well, I know, but that was one of the reasons we were asked for,
Take
right?
like 5 minutes to drive there.
Yeah,
It's
so,
a short break.
We could do what some of the clubs do around here, which is offer the August when it kind of empties out in Darien. Because I know some of the clubs offer, an August membership because people typically take off. Something to think about. I'm just.
that's what I'm saying, so a couple of people want to put their heads together and look at whatever, we could do that. But I just wanted to get the numbers out there because we've talked about this before, and we're like, gee, we don't even know what the numbers are, so Tamara was great when I got the numbers, and they're big. They're big numbers.
Pam, do you receive phone requests around, like right before the summertime or springtime
Oh, absolutely.
from
Because they had
employees?
it before. It was, as far as I understand it, it never made it in the rules and regulations and didn't make it to this commission. It was kind of just an inside thing that the Parks Department did. And
It wasn't well known though. It wasn't like out there.
No, it
at
wasn't
all.
publicized.
Like people asked me about it later on, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess. I
Yeah.
actually wasn't sure about it.
I think, because I wasn't here.
But it was never publicized for sure.
Didn't publicize it while I've been here, but.
I mean, there's one teacher that's pretty consistently asked the past 2 or 3 years, which I since learned, he used to live in Darien, and then he moved out of Darien, so he was kind of used to using the Darien beaches.
I mean, we do that for programs. So if somebody's in town hall and they have kids, they want to take our programs, we'll give them a discount for a town employee. I think that's how they have always done that.
Well, I'd be happy to run a meeting or two if anyone's interested. Just email me as well, and happy to have those conversations. Pam, if you can be part of it, would be very helpful.
Sure.
Yep.
The other thing I say, be mindful if we try to come up with something like it's, weekdays only and
Let's
two.
talk.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you also have to consider how we would implement that because the work falls on PM and the staff, so.
Understand?
And the guards, we have to figure that out too.
Yeah.
Like how they would identify.
Okay, so that's that. So in terms of, we have to go back to the park fee schedule and think about the military resident, whether that's something we want to proceed with, either as proposed where it's, the fee is waived or offer some sort of small discount or not proceed with it at all because of the potential revenue loss. So I will open that for this.
How does it stand previously? Or it's active duty, or there's?
We have never offered this in the past. Just, it came up, I'm not even sure how it came up.
Someone brought it up.
Then I would start with active duty, the same way that we have.
We have
active.
no way of,
Of course we do.
well, we don't know the numbers.
I understand, but it's not going to be nearly as high as all veterans in town.
So I guess I'm gonna go back to sort of Janet's recent question is, how many people have asked for this? So how many?
I don't know.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
what is the,
Well,
So,
how did this come up
what
then?
is the demand from the people in town?
I can't say it's a large demand because it would be on my desk. And
Yeah.
it wasn't me who brought this up, so I don't,
Who did bring it up?
I can't remember.
Wasn't me.
I guess we gotta figure out why we're doing it. And I remember when we used to do it, like things like we started giving out these, I was here when we gave out the post-53 and the volunteer. And the idea was that people were serving, you know,
In
in
town.
capacity. And but then some people were like, well, in theory, why don't town volunteers get it? Like commission members, committee members. So it kind of gets kind of like, once we start down that road, like people that give their time, who else is giving their time without pay, let's say in this case.
Yeah.
I mean, so we started with post-53 and then became volunteer firemen. And then, but we always had senior, I'm pretty sure we always had senior. So I guess that's what we're trying to figure out is what our goals are as a program. You know, are we trying to recognize people? Are we trying to, like, what categories, are they doing service to this town? Yes, they did service to the country, so it kind of covers the town, I guess, in a way. So I guess we just have to work through that. But then where do we stop? Like, do we start going to the commission and say, oh, the first select people and the
Well,
boards?
not for nothing, but you guys serve, I mean, you're
And we've
expected to
never-
be in the parks,
And we've never.
and
ever
you
done
don't
this.
get free, I mean, I get one because I'm old enough, but.
You didn't have to tell us that.
I'm proud, I'm proud. But, you know, I didn't for a lot of years, so it just.
We've always paid, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So just something, I guess, as a commission, to think about, like, what kind of precedent are we gonna keep on setting for this type of fee? Because we're gonna get to the point where there's other groups that might come to us and say, hey, I've had this issue and I want this as a recognition for us, so, I don't know.
So that's what I was saying, so if we're looking at active duty, they can go to Pam and show that they're active duty. First and foremost, if they're active duty, it doesn't mean they're gonna be here the entire summer anyway, right, or full year, there are deployments. The second of that, if we're looking at volunteer firefighters and we're looking at post-53, right, active service, what's going on? So we're not saying extended, hey, veterans for forever, it would just be, and I would imagine that the current number of active duty service members in this town are not wildly high. I think it's certainly something that we could afford, whereas the larger number that you had mentioned, if we look at the entire veteran population, seems like that could be a little bit more of it.
But I'm just going back, because I think this is an important point. We haven't really gotten anybody calling about it. So,
I mean, I would imagine if I asked my office if they've gotten a question about it, I'm sure there has to be, there's been a question, but it hasn't been overwhelming enough to come to my desk and say, we have so many complaints about this.
right.
So if you go to, like, I know, like, at the ski mountains, they give discounts to, like, military
Sure.
and students, and they have categories they do it, and military's always one,
Sure.
just as given. But it's not free, it's usually like a discounted or, amount, so. But I just feel like this fee structure is gonna get overly complex, and we have like a line item for this, and I just like to, I wanna recognize the military. My son is in the military, and he has an active duty card, in theory, he would get one. But I just think that for this purpose as a commission, if we could keep it simple and, let's, like, unless we're getting like inundated with calls about military, let's maybe wait another year.
And
Maybe that could be something we
back
could
next
research further, which I'm willing to
Conversation.
about. Maybe
Sure.
there is data out there that we can get from somebody about that and see how many people would come up. But I also don't want to be like, oh, there's only going to be 100 people, let's just give it to the 100 people. Is it because, versus the 600? It just, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that makes sense either, so.
And I can come back next month with more clarification on the office.
Okay.
I do,
Yeah, I think that would be important.
okay.
And, we could change it, like, as long as we do public, public meeting later on. It's not always this time, right?
No, I don't think anything prevents us from updating the fee schedule
we
later.
need to later.
Just, we need to set it and publish it. Tamara did some, digging around. She contacted Darien VFW, she really kind of worked around to see if she could, and she just couldn't come up with the information
For active.
for the active. All right, so it sounds like for now, we are not going to proceed on that one line item. So the only change for this year is adding the fees for some of the pickleball. They're starting to charge for that, at least for part of the slots. And everything else this year stays the same, correct? Yes.
Pam, can I just ask how you're going to enforce that and for pickleball? How, do you have an app?
No, right now we're looking into our reservation system and and our active software. But we've called around to numerous towns, and Cassie from Milford, and it really is, it's on the honor system. I mean, you get a reservation, you pay for it, you print out your receipt, just like you do for tennis here in town, and you're encouraged to bring that.
And
Is
that the reservation system that's kind of long-term, like we're doing for tennis? Like you're doing it, you're not just doing it as a one-off for an hour and a half? Are you locking in for like a minimum of?
Hour and a half.
No, I meant over a period of time.
Oh, no, that's
I think
block.
at tennis we
Right.
did blocks.
Yes.
Is this blocking?
No.
So
Right
this
now
is
we're in
just
conversation.
one-offs?
Yes. But- And it's and the
That's
week
what they're trying to
before.
figure out.
That's
But
gonna
they
be
do
very
that,
challenging.
they do that in Milford, and they work it out. You know, the difference is, and they don't have a person on site, because that was our concern from day one, not having an attendant or what have you. We have been discussing whether or not we might bring somebody on in the beginning to field the busiest times for reservations, because we'll obviously be bringing in revenue to pay for a part-time person to be down there during that time to make sure there's no.
But if Lori's
problems.
gonna head over, is there gonna be a place that she can go online and check and see, are all 4 of these courts reserved already? So I'm not gonna go at 8 to 9:30?
You'll see it when you go to the active to register. You're gonna see what's full and what's not.
So you'd effectively try to register and you say, oh,
Yeah, that it's.
there's nothing available from 8 to 9:30, but I can
Daily.
go at 11.
Daily. And
Right.
it's gonna be user-friendly and easy. I'm
I hope so.
giving you all this.
I hope
'cause,
so.
You
You
know,
said there'd be some always.
pickleball people are strong.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a learning curve,
Yeah.
and we are preparing in the office right now to try and make sure we're as thorough as possible with all the questions and concerns that could happen with this. And it was our hesitation from the beginning, but we're willing
And
to try.
one last question, did you discuss doing it as a block? Like at least starting it as a block? Like if the seniors were doing that block time from that time to see how that rolled off versus the one-offs? Because then people at least got their heads around, for the month of May, we know we have it or for these 3 months, we have that Tuesday and Thursday from 8 to 9:30.
We have not, other than some of the accommodations we were thinking of offering, but we can have that conversation. I can sit down with Jim and Cassie again and say, okay, I didn't, I was kind of taking their lead, listening to what they were discussing in terms of how we handle it with paddle.
Okay, did you talk to Steve O'Connell and get
Yes.
his feedback on how
Yes.
a lot of different places do it, not just Milford?
Yes, we've talked to
Okay,
them as well.
'cause-
So, and again, we're in the beginning of conversation, and
Sure.
actually getting the rules and regulations that are written, that would be posted on the site. We are definitely not ready yet.
Okay.
So,
Great.
but thank you.
No, I just want,
Yes.
I'm anticipating where the bumps will be and
Right.
just trying to throw them
And we are
out so
too.
we can think about it.
But thank
in
you, I
advance.
will bring that back to the drawing board. We're certainly not locked in any way right now.
And the easiest thing, I mean, like, if people belong to like golf clubs, they have something called 4Ts now, where you click on 4Ts, you make your reservation, it's locked in, you see, oh, I can't play at 8:30, but I can play at 9:30. So that's why I said
Right, the
app,
app.
ease of use.
Yep, and I will bring that to their attention. I know that Steve had mentioned that, but then I guess our very first thing was that can we utilize the software we already have, right? So, but because we've just found out that today, that they can't reserve the times that we want them to reserve. It has to be a block time, like say it's 6 to 10 in the morning. Then if you go in and you say, oh, I want 8 to 9:30, then there's a half hour scrapped from 9:30 to 10, and then you only have one other little time block before that from 6 to 8 to block off. So you can't get 3 reservations in a 4-hour block time. But with an app, maybe we could. Maybe that would
You
be
definitely can.
maybe that's the solution. We're trying to use our software to the best of its ability, since we have it. Today was, kind of hit a wall today, but now we said, okay, let's see if there's a back door with our software that we can use in a different way in order to get what we want.
So how do people reserve paddle? If they're just like, gee, let's see if we can get a court on Friday at 5 o'clock, can't you just go in and you reserve for an hour?
It's block time. So meaning there's a scheduled amount of time that is open for reservations, right?
Right.
But it's not for an hour and a half, say from 6 to 7:30. It's allowed use the example again, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Right? So if you say, well, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. you can see that all those hours are available, then you just choose what's best for you. So you go in and say, okay, I'm going to do 7:30 to 9:30. And then that you'll see 6 to 7:30 available,
Yeah.
and 9:30 to 10.
But do you do it in
That's it.
90-minute blocks? Are you doing it in 60-minute, 90-minute,
I'm not sure.
2
Right,
hours?
yeah, yeah.
I think those are some of these clarity things. Why
Right.
don't you ask Jim to explore 4Ts and just see how they
Right.
do it? They do racket sports that way at a lot of different.
Like I said, he
facilities.
mentioned it to us, but we
Yeah.
haven't gotten there yet because we're exploring our own software. So
Okay.
it works for
No,
paddle.
just to see how that works and if that
Yep.
could work within
Right.
your software. And then I'll get off the subject, but
Yeah.
so you don't have a specific time for paddle, you don't lock it in
We let the people choose.
for 2 hours, 1 hour, 90 minutes?
No, I think they have the scheduled time. It's just that we can't set the scheduled time. So say we have 6 to 8:30, right? But Lori says, well, that time isn't good for me. 7's better for me, 7 to 8:30. So in the way we have it set up, she can choose the 7 to 8:30.
Right, I'm asking, do you do it in 90-minute blocks?
I believe so,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Devil's always in the details, right?
Okay, so are we ready to vote on the proposed fiscal '24 park fee schedule, eliminating the line that's in orange for military residents?
Are we deleting it, or are we just holding on to it because
For
we're having
now,
a
we're
subcommittee?
deleting it.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think we're having a subcommittee on that.
You say that we're setting up a subcommittee to research it more as for the minutes?
I thought the subcommittee was for the employees. Okay.
We can do both.
Okay. I would delete it for now. There's nothing anywhere in our rules that says we can't update the schedule during the year. We'll just add something subcommittee, I don't think. Susan? Okay. Second? Mary Louise? Yes. Okay, all in favor? Yes, everybody not opposed. Joel. Just organize myself here. Next, we need to vote on the $20,000 donation from the Dortelman family for the gazebo, which I believe we have in our hot little hands.
Yes.
But as you know, given the amount of the donation, it actually has to be accepted through the town by a number of different bodies, up to and including the RTM. But we need to do that first. We've been pausing a bit on this because we have to anticipate that, the question's going to be asked in terms of, do you have enough money to complete the project, which at this particular moment, we don't know. The bid's open, what, day after tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Have you gotten any?
I have not heard from upstairs, but we have her out person, so I'll find out tomorrow.
Okay.
Usually Karen will call me and say, we have one, but she's been out.
Okay.
So.
So the trick is, we can vote to accept it, but there is the potential that the 20,000 is not enough to finish the project. So then the question is, then what? Now, Pam, when you had that as an alternate on the roof, what were the bids for that piece?
I wish I brought that with me, but
It was more than 20.
there were a couple that were more than 20 and one within.
There was one.
So the one that did the roof was over 20. But he ironically came in less than everybody else on the roof.
Okay.
So, but we sent it out to numerous contractors, so I have a really hard time believing we won't get at least a few bids on it.
And based on the other bids you got, are you feeling kinda good that you'll have one within the 20?
I do, based on the bids we did. Yeah, I was surprised, so I do. But what, I can't.
No, right, I
But I
understand.
do feel as
So is
if,
their donation 20,000 or is it to cover the renovation? So
It's $20,000.
It's a, so
We
like-
received it.
So in theory, we would be on the hook to vote the balance because we want to finish the
Correct.
project. So it really doesn't stop us from voting on their donation because they're not going to give us 25 to finish it. They're giving us
No, no,
Okay.
it's just that, I'm making numbers up for an example. If it came in at 30,
Right.
we would be woefully short, and I certainly wouldn't be putting myself in front of the selectmen saying, gee, I really think you should accept this
I
donation.
don't really understand this because we'd already earmarked
We had
15 already.
We spent that for the roof,
Yeah, now we have 20.
right, so we spent, what, 12,500 for the roof, so we have 2,500 left, so that's good, so that gives us a cushion of $2,500,
Yeah.
and we have the 20.
Yeah.
So as long as we come in within 22,500,
Just to do the
Will be.
ramp and
I'm
yeah,
just
we're
saying,
gonna- We're
because-
gonna be fine. Yeah. I think we should
Okay.
just vote to accept the donation.
okay, but
and
just,
see where we are.
we need to be aware, and I thought it would be worth having a brief discussion if we were a little bit short, I mean, if we're a lot short, then,
because based on the ad alternate, we got some numbers that were clearly over the 20, that's why.
right, we had bids the first round that were over.
Okay, so we've got 22.5 to work with.
Right.
Okay.
So just be on your noodle backs and say, well, Pam, you know, if you needed a few more $1,000s, do you have anywhere to grab that? She cringed. One thought that occurred to me, and I think we'd have to ask for a transfer, but, you know, whether, you know, we do have the beautification dollars we
I was
can
just
talk
thinking the
about,
same
so,
thing, yeah.
you know, maybe that would be somewhere if we needed to top off the tank that we could. But we're just gonna need to know, because we're not gonna go to the selectmen, we're not gonna go to the board of finance, we're not gonna go to the RTM with not enough money to complete the project. I just don't see that as being a smart thing to do.
Right.
When
So,
are their meetings?
I would go, if you're comfortable with it, I'd go ahead and, I'd recommend voting on it,
Yeah.
because we'd like to get it on our
Yeah.
February.
yes, no, I agree. I
We
just,
discussed it in rules last week, we'd like to get it on the
Yes.
agenda.
yes, I would too. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure
Yeah.
everybody
It
knows
can
that we
always
don't
be
know for
taken
sure.
off if it's not ready for prime time.
Right,
But it's harder to get things on
Right.
agendas.
right, I understand, but I just wanna make sure that at this moment in time, we do not know with 100% certainty that we're gonna have enough money.
Sure, heard ya.
Okay.
When does the bid close?
Tomorrow?
So it's closing tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you'll
Yeah.
know. So if we vote tonight to go forward and it turns out it's way woefully, we could just not push it forward, like officially, like tell
Yeah.
the board of selectmen or whoever's the next body that we're not doing it, or that we need to reconsider our funding sources.
I would just be really surprised if it came in over. I mean,
I'm open.
it's just for the amount of work that needs to be
Where
done.
there will be some that,
It's not a lot.
where there will be some that are over because they already are, whether they bid on it or not, because we saw those numbers in there.
No, I wouldn't accept those
Right.
people. I
So-
mean, it's a ramp with some boards. It's just not.
And the
railings
townspeople
and-
and the painting.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Motion to approve?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor? All
Aye.
right, we'll let you know when we know, but I just, again, I just wanted to be full disclosure with everybody.
Yeah,
so we
no,
know,
absolutely.
Because you know, I'm usually the one going before the
Yes.
board's big in our cases, and
No,
when
I
people
get
say,
it.
and then of course the other question they're gonna be, will there be any ongoing maintenance costs and how are you gonna cover those, which, yes, there will, but Pam, I believe you represented that going forward, that your staff can do the maintenance, and that, you know, it's not like we're
And the
putting up
painting.
something that now that we've gotta hire a contractor to
But this
do
isn't
blah
new,
every year.
this isn't new,
I know.
it was already being taken care of, and then it got dropped off for some reason when the gentleman who was doing it no longer did. So,
Well, he was painting, he wasn't fixing rot and things like that, he was painting it.
yeah, but there's
From
an
what I
argument to be
understand,
made that
'cause
because
he
it
didn't do
was
carpentry.
being maintained, you know, with paint, et cetera, that it fell into disrepair because it hadn't been painted, you know, and things were exposed to the elements. Maybe not the roof, but likely some other areas. So it's just all part of our commitment to the maintenance of
Yes.
our
Yep.
facilities.
Yep, understood. But just, I gotta be ready to be asked the question, say, is there any maintenance
No,
expense?
no, no,
whatever,
you're
yeah.
being reflected on all of this, I
Yep.
completely understand.
Yep. Did we just vote?
Yeah, they did, we did.
Okay.
We did.
We didn't just
We did.
talk about voting?
No, everybody.
Okay, everybody was That was it, yes, sorry.
Yes.
It happened quickly. It happened quick.
Yeah, everybody's ready.
We really did?
As this meeting is.
We really did vote? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we did.
All right. Beautification funds. We have to keep bringing this up because we have funds in the budget, and we've got budget meetings coming up. And again,
How much is it?
this year it's 18.
It's 18, right?
Being in front of the selectmen and saying, well, how did you spend it this year? I'm like, we haven't really figured that out yet. It's not gonna be.
Well, how much is left for us to spend before July?
Have we used any of it?
18.
So.
Need it for watering, for sure.
We need some for water. Do you think we're gonna need some for watering?
Yes.
Do you know how much? Ish?
I put in additional 3,000 for watering for
Next
tree maintenance account. for
Yeah, but
next year.
for this, between now and June 30th? How much of this?
It all depends on how much work we're doing and where, right? So you'd have to have some sort of,
I mean, I could see using it to help some of the invasive issues, right?
We also have a budget
Absolutely.
for that, though. We have a
We
budget
do
for
have a
that.
budget
We
for that,
do,
but
but
we,
we use
it's
extra money.
not big enough for all the
Minimal,
invasive
yeah.
issues.
I mean, as I recall, what we were thinking of was really plants. So for instance, at Baker, I think some of the plants that the garden club put in didn't survive. So unless they're going to replace them,
Baker?
we really need to do that. Not Baker, Tilly, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh, they did survive.
They didn't?
There was a couple, well, I walked by in the summer and there were a
I
couple
think
things.
they're warranted though. They had, one
Okay.
year, they said that, I remember
Oh,
that, and
okay.
they
In
were
front of it.
actually pretty good about it, because they had those
Okay.
things, all the watering
Okay,
pieces.
well, I remember the summer, I noticed there were a couple things, or maybe it was early fall, that they looked like they were.
A little bit.
yeah, it was a bad
But it was
problem.
very, everything was a little
regular
bit this
ground.
summer.
But I think the idea was, do we want to have planters with flowers? Do we want to have hanging baskets? Are there parks that we just feel could use some more?
Trees?
Sure. Trees, bushes.
Natural.
But again, we have to start identifying those. You know, pear tree, I know we've talked about, at least trying to spruce up with, we want to do something with the building, but again, like around
So one,
the building, we were talking about, can we do like a little landscaping? To me, that would be a priority. But again, we had to figure this out, so we either need a couple people again to say, let's,
we all received an email today from a neighbor across the street from Pear Tree Point discussing sand
Sand.
blowing into,
Yep.
talking about that there used to previously be a berm and a chain link fence. I would state that I don't think any of us want to go back to a chain link fence down that side, but we've all walked it, actually 2 years in a row, and there's enough space there that I believe we could put in natural grasses that would do a better job to not only,
Buffer.
hide, the view of necessarily just the parking lot, but then also be able to hold the sand there, and it's also, we could find something that's natural that works in there. To me, and we talked about it, you could run all the way down Pear Tree Point, and it could go into and cover over some of the picnic area, which again would offset what you
Maybe that's a
have
nice idea.
there. To me, I mean, Pear Tree needs the work. We know this, we've all talked about it, we've walked through this multiple times. I think that, yes, being able to cover the actual existing facility or beautify it is great. We all do agree goldenrod is not the way, that's fine. Not going that route,
Totally
but
not.
I think for seagrasses or something that helps around that area, that to me, if we're looking to spend and get, some return on investment between now and the summer, would be the way that I would suggest.
We need to get some estimates.
yeah, but if we prioritize as a group, then we can get with the right professional people to get those estimates, but we can't work on that if we haven't come to consensus about where we think we want to spend the money. I did forward that letter to Dan Biggs this morning to ask if specifically this issue was in the approved plan. And his response was, I gotta make this over. The addition of berms will help with minimizing migration of sand, however, it won't eliminate all migration. As noted, the fencing and berms along the roadway probably minimize the wind blowing and sand. Our plan currently does not include adding new berms along the roadway, but town forces could reconstruct. When I mean town forces, I said, is this our berms, or is this something that Pam staff could, recreate? So saying that another way, this specifically is not in the CTD approved plan, but Dan thinks that there's something that we could just do kind of on our own to.
Won't that area be
Address.
raised up when they do their plan though? Isn't that the whole idea, is that parking lot and all that grade is gonna change, I thought?
I'm not
No?
sure right
Not
up
the whole
there.
grade, it's more, it's more about that, like the bathtub effect would be filled.
I
So
think not so much at the end.
So the road would,
Neighbor.
the grade to the road wouldn't change?
No, because then it would be
No.
difficult to meet the
I mean,
road.
Nothing's
Their
going higher than
entrance.
the road.
I know that in the past, that whole area did have some grasses, and there's been stuff there, I remember, because they actually, when they had a whole, I think neighbors actually donated some of the landscaping along that
That was
area.
the
it was
Zangrillos
torn down.
down to the, that was
Remember?
Yeah.
before you pull in.
Yeah.
And that is still there, but where the bulletins are being affected is they live right across
I
the
know where
street
they live.
from the entrance,
Mhm.
and it's there. And so if you drive down, like I went back down today when I saw that letter, and, because she had forwarded it to me as well, and there is a large amount of sand. What I did notice, to your point, Chris, was as you come down and you get to the picnic area, there is less sand there because there is still the black fence there around that area. I agree, we don't want to go back to fencing the rest of the area, but that does show how that helped to keep it in. So I think a berm with, I mean, you guys would know, there's so many experts on this area.
So we're saying that we would put the money towards building that area up.
Well, maybe that and just general, sort of some planting around
The building.
the pavilion and
Yeah.
whatever.
As long as it takes in consideration the plans that you have to redo the area, right? So to make sure that whatever we put in lasts beyond the renovations as well and aren't impacted by the renovations would be my only concern.
Is a landscape plan of this magnitude, and I mean really smaller, is that something Dan does, or is he really big projects and this was something we would just go to the local landscape architect to get ideas? Because he knows the parcel so well, and then in theory he could do something that would sort of tie in with what the plan
What he
is.
does.
But if he's just like, now something, just to make it a little pretty around the buildings, like, like two big
I think he
projects.
would,
I
actually.
think
I
we
don't
all
think
know.
that would take him very long.
I think that's a really good point also for consistency.
Yep.
It's really, we've spotty things of, this table looks like that, and then
Yep.
over there it looks like that.
Yep.
You just
Yeah.
want a unification.
Okay, let's see if that's something he can do.
Sure.
Would that cost us more though, when we have so many really talented people even sitting in this room to weigh in? That's all I'm saying.
We're not
We get it-
professional landscape architects.
No, but if we, I don't think it.
Let's just see what he says.
No, when you're
Yeah,
thinking
see what he
about
says.
planting
I'm
and
just
sand
asking from a
and
financial
salt
standpoint,
and-
are we gonna have to go to the Board of Finance and ask for more money if he's gonna work on it?
No, this
Okay.
would have to be within what we've got. No.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, this
Thank
would have to be within what we've got. Yeah, that would be
Right,
the
we
thing
would
is-
hope that we would have a plan and more
Right.
money to
Do it.
do the plan.
Yeah, I mean, local landscape architects, I mean, certainly the person I work with, she just charges by the hour, and then if she comes and oversees the planting, whatever. So I mean, I think we all know people in town that we think are good and would probably know how to do this. I just was saying, we should, just because Dan might fit it in the context of the bigger plan and what he
He's
perceives,
actually
but,
doing berms also that he designed for Weed Beach too.
right,
So he's,
Right.
knows the appropriate planting, because that's all sandy.
Right.
So, I mean,
It
it's not
shouldn't
very-
take him long.
no, it should, but if his fee is
12,000.
right, gonna use up all our
over.
money, then we would go into,
Right,
and
we have to go
start talking to, a couple
Right.
local resources,
It's a good idea.
From a project planning standpoint, it would also make sense for him to do it, just so things happen when they should, contingent upon what else he's doing, so things we don't go backwards with getting anything ruined that was planted, and like the coordination would be sort of like a one-stop shop with him, as opposed to him having to coordinate with a separate.
Well, he's not guaranteed to get the job for Pear Tree.
Right.
It's a bid package will go out, I mean,
Well,
he'll bid on it,
behoove him
right.
to.
of course, yeah. And
But if we want to look at
This money is till June 30th
Right.
of 2023 that we have to use it.
So we have to be quick about it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we just met with Eversource on the Selleck's Woods plantings, and, you know, you have to get plants ordered, you know, and if there's availability.
Yep.
He says plant materials been really hard to source,
Yep.
so.
It has been for a couple of years now.
So-
Yeah. So, but if we
Something-
want to do something just around the exterior of the bathhouse and maybe get some nice plant, and then of course, make sure that we have enough money to
Water.
keep them watered.
It's a good idea.
What
to
about
be
Highland?
focused.
Highland?
Highland, yeah.
Highland is not a park, it's not in our purview.
So, okay, so we wouldn't worry about the watering there.
Pam does, we don't. It's not, we literally have no authority over it. It's not our property to decide anything on.
And what's established there has already been, is established now. What we lost, we lost.
Yeah.
And so now the decision is like, what are we gonna replenish? And really that's, you know, I've been talking to Kate about that.
So you don't need to water anymore either?
Not right now, not unless there's new things planted.
Okay.
But at Cherry, we're gonna need to water all those trees we put in the fall.
Pam, will you just clarify that with Kate when, I mean, I know you down the line on the budget, but,
About what plant?
because
planting?
that fell under her purview.
Right.
For the planting, so make sure the watering is falling under her purview and any other planting, so it's not kind of being rated from y'all's budget.
Right.
So it's falling under the selectmen's budget.
Well, we put money in our budget. We put $9,000 in, and so Charles was starting that. He was doing the maintenance and the watering of Highland before.
Did you put it in 9K for this future? For the future budget starting in July, you mean, or in the past?
For our current one, our current budget that we're in now, we have 9,000,
For Highland.
of which Charles was doing some of that work over the summer.
I remember.
So-
Was that moved over though? That was, I just really, you want to draw clear lines
Right.
between.
You know, right now, I'm
Yeah.
drawing a blank on
Yeah,
that.
that's okay. Just,
On
that's
the
a follow-up
9,000,
question.
whether we reduced it or I can't remember for right now, but I can
Okay.
come back to you on that one.
Thanks.
I'm just having a blank on that.
Okay.
That's okay, you don't have to run with everything.
Okay, so it sounds like really pear tree is the priority, let's spruce that. Spruce that up a little.
So I can come back next month at the next commission
Mhm.
meeting with the results from Dan, and if I
Well,
if I find Dan is too expensive, I don't know, we'll talk.
No, I would like to, if we can hear from Danny, I mean, he usually responds
Oh, no,
today or whatever, but
Right.
we
He'll
kind
give me a price pretty quick.
we kind of need to get going.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't want to wait till our next commission meeting to, we kind of get,
Maybe just send us an email.
yeah, summer's coming, we'll do it. Summer's coming. So, it's just sourcing materials and getting that all done, it takes time.
I guess I should ask, what is the commission willing to spend out of the 18 for a plan? So that will be, you know, if he comes back and says, you know, he can do a design for 8,000. Just
Can't
that's,
imagine.
whatever it may be.
No, I'm thinking it should be like 1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
1,000, 2,000.
Maybe two.
Yes.
But
Yeah, if
probably
it includes something to help address the sand migration.
Particularly since you can potentially just take the berm from Reed Beach and make a little drawing that's
Mhm.
different.
I agree with you, but just
Yeah, yeah.
bracing myself for.
Yeah, just in general, I think that's the expectation is 1 to 2, at least from me.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so there's nothing to vote on there, I just want to make sure we're,
Likely about 1.
we'd like one.
Well, I think our design with Weed Beach was 5, but
that's
that was much more.
Extensive.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, right.
Those were a lot.
But we are in favor of the fact that the bulk of the 18 is going to go towards pear tree.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, and then if we march down, we have some left, and we
Yeah,
can figure
of course.
out, okay, do we need to replace some, you know, there's some dead bushes or trees at other parks, do we need to quickly replace?
Wait, I
or
don't think it's the
spruce
full
up or
18
whatever?
because we've got water.
yes, that's 3, so 15.
15.
Yeah.
This is the bulk. Yeah.
Yeah, the
This-
bulk.
yeah, the bulk.
The
So as long
bulk,
as
not
we're-
the full 18.
Yeah.
It's 15.
Amy, when you think of watering, are you thinking of watering at like Cherry Lawn and those new trees too?
Yeah, I'm thinking of whatever you think the $3,000 is that you want to spend, and I'm confident that you figured it out, right? So if you say it's going to cost $3,000 to do watering in
Well, I
various
think
places.
the estimate that we put together was really only covering cherry lawn, so we haven't actually talked about, you know, hanging baskets. Like, are we gonna try that at Pear Tree? We tried that last year, you know, without the watering, which was also like a really hot July, so. I feel like 3,000 may be low.
Our
If
guys
we're
then-
trying to cover both.
Right, and our guys, you know, wanted the overtime, and it worked out that way, except we're in a very busy season for them. So as much as I think they would be hungry, I don't even know if there's enough room for that amount of overtime, but I will also research that.
But they've also expressed doing some of the invasive work on overtime. There's only so much overtime
There's only
they
so
can
much
do.
you can do.
I mean, they do have to get
Well,
help.
let's just figure it all out, how it all comes together,
Yeah.
right? It looks like, you know, maybe we'll do 15, maybe less to accommodate that and see where, if Dan can come up with a plan that's within his budget and his feet, right?
And he should be able to come up with what that plan should cost.
Yeah. So if he can get it, you know, to 12 or 13, then we have a little wiggle room for.
Cool.
Wait, just really quickly, can anyone here think of any additional watering needs besides those two areas that we just mentioned? Okay.
I think there's really-
Not unless you're gonna anticipate having some sort of
plantings.
planting at Weed Beach.
We think whatever's at Tilly is okay, let's rethink, sure, because I remember some stuff looked
I
at.
do too.
So then that's gotta be replaced and that would need to be watered.
But if it's under warranty through the garden
Yeah, it
club,
was a year.
But then it would need to be, it still needs to be watered
Still
though.
needs to be watered.
Did the garden club say, like,
Well, I think when we
they did all
talked
the
to them
watering
about
at
it,
Cherry
they were
Lawn based
sure.
on what they did.
they were doing the watering.
Yeah, they were
actually.
taking care of that, and they said that to us, because we remember we were talking to them about, you know, maintenance and longevity, and they said, yeah.
I thought they
A
were
lot of
planting the
these,
watering truck.
all the plants, all these companies typically give you a year warranty for the plants, for everybody, so.
I was hoping for some hanging baskets to be watered at Wheat Beach too, like we had put up last year, but you know, it's just a couple. But it is a trip to that park, so.
Right, well, I think
We
we
don't have
were in
to.
discussions with having the lifeguards make sure that they were, when they were off duty. But,
I don't know, I feel like we should at least get an understanding from the vendor, you know, how much it would be incrementally just to stop by another couple of places and.
right, so you have the vendor information, you've already reached out to them, so that's, I wonder if it's the same person who's doing the watering around town with the hanging plants?
No,
No.
not
That's a
the
Because
same.
I know they were,
They didn't have capacity,
No.
so
Right.
we found someone else
Because we
who
had
was
asked
going to
Juliet
help.
Jen, and she said they were full to capacity.
Right.
So we had found somebody
okay,
else.
well, good,
Yeah.
She
okay.
was supposed to help us with the new plantings in,
It was,
was that October?
right, and then in the end, your guys were able to
Right.
do it
Right.
the
with the
first 2
truck. We
weeks.
found out about the watering truck, and that all worked out, and they got a little overtime, and it was a short period
Right,
of time, too.
right.
Yeah.
So Janet, how
In theory,
how
that
much
money
do you
should
think
go
you
down.
need to do the things you want to do with these hanging baskets and so on and so forth? Do you need 4? Do you need 5? What do you think?
I think to go back to him just to make sure, we haven't spoken to him for a couple of months. So I will find out, I'll come back to the commission.
So much of this stuff, especially if you're looking at the native stuff that they planted at Cherry Lawn, right? It is pretty established now, and you really just need to water it when it's like in
Really
like
dry.
stress, which was like last year was a
Last
terrible
July,
year.
yeah.
And so people had to supplement, and some of those plantings were new, so we definitely had to do it. But I think going forward, a lot of this stuff isn't gonna require long-term watering, except for your baskets, the annuals. So I think.
So the 30 trees in Cherry Lawn, you don't
No.
think it's like a daily,
don't think-
or like a,
No.
Well, they're
They're
watered
still very
good right
young.
now.
So you
but
don't
so
think we're
wet.
gonna need it in the spring? I mean, I was
I think
there
so.
the other day and I
Trees.
walked down and there was one, the cage was off, it was starting to topple, I tried to
That
tamp it
was from the
down,
wind
but.
though. Typically, these things, once they're, you know, like we've had such a wet, I mean, and it's kind of been funky. I mean, the hot, cold process and it heaves and when things get frozen, they come up. But no, typically, that's the whole beauty of planting native is that they do put out these roots and they're able to, you know, grow and.
Even that quickly, given that they went in October, you think? I would have thought we would
I
have
think
needed
the
it for this
spring,
spring.
well, what I'm saying is the spring's not the time you need to really spend the money watering it. It's really the summer that when
Yeah, we
it's the
might need to
hottest part.
front, we might need
And
to,
so I think anybody we hire, I don't want it to be like, well, it's every week since April to August, when honestly, you probably don't need it happening until May, mid-May maybe, even late May, depending on the season. So I don't think that as a commission, we want someone to go regularly. Just, you know, it would be great to be able to have someone that would look at the weather conditions and say, oh, I mean, just like a lot of these apps do for watering, you know, if it rains, we're not gonna water stuff, and we're not gonna have to go out and incur that labor cost to have someone do that. So that's, I don't know if that person that you hired has that flexibility, but it just depends on the season, who knows? Like, winter's been very mild, so we haven't had the plow guy, so it's like, that's variability that
well, the
happens.
summer is certainly what we discussed, when we would really need him.
It's July and August, basically.
Right, but since the money is really supposed to be spent before,
We lose it on June 30th.
So, but we could buy plants and plant stuff and water that in. Do you see what that's?
so that's my question, could we get that allocated for usage in July and August?
This year's money, no. It goes away. We lose it
Okay, so then.
Use it or lose it.
Move.
by June 30th. So then we'd have to
But then we're
start
getting
dipping.
more money for.
Yeah, but then we'd have money in, well, we have a
And
request
And then we'll
for,
use the next one.
Yeah, okay.
for next year.
Okay.
So in theory, we might have more money for plantings
Yeah.
than we need for watering.
Right,
This
so-
round, for
right,
this
because
last bit.
His
right?
work really won't kick off probably until June, July, August.
Just because I don't think it's necessary. you
Right.
know.
That
I
is
mean,
when we
that's
were
when we had the hardest time. When we were watering the garden at Town Hall, the ones that the bushes we put in, it wasn't until it got really dry and hot.
Yeah.
And in the spring, we're like, yes, it's raining, nature takes its course. So,
Okay, so does that mean we're back up to 18 again?
well, we need to have the plan costs.
We need to have a plan.
Right, but I mean, she can work with the 18 as opposed to the 15.
But we
Right.
may need some money for May and June.
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
watering.
May can
yeah.
get very hot.
Yeah.
Much less.
Yeah, much less.
Yeah, because
these won't-
July and
So
August
you're
is when I
okay with the
assumed
first,
he
so
would
we'll
work
stick with the 15.
like every other
Yeah,
day.
15 is probably good enough.
15 is probably fair. Making sure you have a little.
Right. We are on to your report.
Okay. Straight up, I just want to acknowledge that this report I do alongside with my quarterly report to the Board of Selectmen, so I did not change the title. It should be Director's Report on this, and it still says Department Heads Meeting, and it all should also should read January 18th. Are there any direct questions? I guess the only thing I want to add is that is not in here, is that Susan and I met with Eversource. I talked about the alert to the town that was going to blast out on about the cutting that was happening and anticipated, but I invited Susan to go with me to meet with Chris Filmer and representatives of the Darien Land Trust to walk the property again to revisit a replanting restoration plan that Eversource is promising. And it's a commitment letter that they're writing. So it was very, they've already started cutting and it's very shocking. However, as I said in the email, the positives are the new sunlight and the new growth that will happen. But what Susan and I brought the planting plan that anybody can look at after the meeting, during the meeting, which suggests a lot of different plants and a lot of things that we went over with their professional landscaper. But Susan really made a great point while we were there too, was that the entrance really could use, beautifying. It's a mess right now. Darien Land Trust opted to go with the meadow look where we used to have a bird walk out there. So they think the best solution for their side of the property is to have a meadow type of look.
Well, our situation is a little different. We're talking about the entrance on Littlebrook Road, which is the only entrance that we, in theory, have on our property, because the Parklands is not on our property. And when you go up there now, you see this giant tower with transmission lines. That's all you see. Like you walk up, it's like pure metal. And I took a bunch of pictures. I could send them to you guys on email, but it just looks very stark. And the planting design that they put together, which I think they were told that we wanted a pollinator garden and a lot of herbaceous type material that they can crush, and if they need to do work around there, it comes back year after year. But it's like very stark, it's brown. Like this time of year, if you look at your native plants, they're all like, you know, they're stems and some seed heads. It's just, it's not gonna cover these giant towers and the railroad right there. So, you know, and to their credit, like they put together a nice pollinator garden, but it's just not befitting an entrance. I mean, our sign is there. And you're gonna have all these like brown sticks coming out, especially this time of year. That's all you're gonna see. It's not gonna cover, your eye's just gonna go right to those like giant transmission lines because that's what you see. There's like 2 of them almost side to side. And so I said that as a commission, I'd like to see more evergreens there, so your eye's not quickly drawn there. It stays down because your eye's drawn to like life, which is green. And so he said that he was somewhat restricted because we had asked him for this pollinator garden, and I was like,
Where's the we?
I don't know, that's what he said, and I don't remember, I don't know.
No, back in March, when we were all discussing this, he was told to give us a design, and he put this together. So it came from Kathleen, who is the head of Eversource, because we were all kind of going, okay, well, we don't even know what this is, what's gonna happen, what it's gonna look like, right? And then it halted with all the negotiations and things. So we never heard about it again. I saw this one little tiny map, and we just never discussed it anymore until now, because now they're ready. So there is not a lot of time.
And like what we just discussed, that materials, if we're sourcing materials, we need to know like in the next few weeks. maybe
And they're
sooner.
willing, more
They're
than
willing to
they're
do
willing.
it, it's just that now we have to come back to them with ideas, because now we're starting from scratch, so.
So can we get some native evergreens?
So, yeah, I did some research, and I'm gonna meet with Pam and Chris Wilmer and whoever else wants to talk to us. But, you know, thinking maybe we do some American hollies, you know, maybe something that kind of brings out the sign and covers, like your eye doesn't go this, it stays with, oh, this is the entrance. Right now, it's not very grand because they pretty much clear cut that whole area, but then they left a couple of bushes that look horrible that are on the circle. And I'm like, just take that away too. I think we need to reimagine that space. And I love these herbaceous natives, but I think we need some more foundation-like plants that were there that will cover the space and will cover some of the railroad. And, you know, so anyway, so I reached out to Laura Mosier and also Joanne Gabriel, who are on the invasive committee. And I have some ideas, I want to talk through them with them. And it's just that one of the things we talked about is that we don't want it to be this huge maintenance nightmare for the town too. So that's why like some of the evergreens, they tend to, you know, you kind of shape them a little bit, but they don't require like cutting down or anything. They stay kind of where they are and behave pretty well. I mean, they had recommended a bunch of common milkweed, which is like the biggest bully in native land. Like that would take over that whole space. And I'm like, I'm not sure. And they're not the prettiest things. So it's like things like that. So anyway, so I want to work with Pam to just make sure that area is pretty.
Great for the pathway though.
They are, but they just, that space with the sun, they'll just,
I mean, it
take
may
over.
not be the right space.
No, it's not the right space for it. I mean, just because we have signage there, we should have things of varying height, foundation, plantings, things like that. So anyway, I've already done a bunch of research, so I'll just, you know, when we have something, you know.
Some
we'll come back.
goldenrod in there.
Goldenrod's great. Actually, that was in one of the plans. It's goldenrod's great.
I
love goldenrod. But anyway, the other space also, in addition to that, is if you walk up a little bit, it's like kind of where the old entrance was, I guess. And it's actually DOT land, and they cleared it, and it kind of borders the South Woods. And they're like, well, maybe you guys decide you want to do a meadow here. But they said, you know, it's not up to us. This is you. Like, if you want to do, it's DOT land, but it borders, like, it's like kind of like on that border.
And they would do it, but they said there's just a risk to it because it may not do anything, and there is a cost to it. Like you have to cut it like $700 a year, cut it all back, have a pressure, you know.
I just think Yeah, but I think, I did some research, and I think we should just chip the whole, like, put a foot of chips there and let it regenerate, then we could put plantings there, because right now, there's a lot of woody and other invasives that are, and the seed bank must be full of invasive weeds, I'm just guessing, so we just gotta bury that stuff for maybe even a couple of years, and then go back and maybe get permission to plant, like, other things that we might desire. But having a foot of chips just to get that stuff, so we're not sitting there fighting invasive weeds that are then encroaching into the park. That would be horrible. That would be another, $20,000 project. So I think we should be proactive about making sure that if we can't plant and do things, that we do things that suppress weeds that can come. So that's, they've cut so many trees, Lori. I mean, they have so many chips. They're ready. They could just spread that. And that'd be easy because they have the equipment and we wouldn't have to do that. So
Well, that was a discussion that we asked if we could keep the chips and that they would move them into the park so that it was easier for our volunteers to put them on them.
Yeah. No, but that area is not, they could do that there and it's not even our land. They could do it as part of their DOT fixing that area. Like a foot of chips will be great and it'll just suppress weeds and then we could plant after that because that'll break down and become soil. So, I don't know. That was the second spot that we were responsible for. And then there was a third spot that I think the land trust met with them and we kind of, we retired from that, so. That was
And
the
they're
Thanks
willing
for
to
your
pay
offer.
for all this, right?
What?
They're willing to pay for
Yes,
it.
and that's why we want to make sure it's done right, and it is the only entrance. And if we'd like to start with a blank slate and make it more welcoming for our community, so.
Did it end up saying that they would water or wouldn't? Because I
They
believe
said
that
they would water
entrance,
the
water.
entrance, but they wouldn't do the
Right,
stuff
second.
that's the second piece, because they made it sound like they were doing us a huge favor, which I was like, okay, we're on it, we'll get you the, so our plan is to get them the plants that we want, that they can order and plant and water, maintain for, I think they said
18 months.
18 months, so it's a good amount of time, and hopefully if we pick things that don't,
Natives, then they'll.
and all perennials, and,
Thanks, Susan, for jumping in.
Thank you.
no problem.
And that's all I really wanted to add, unless you have questions.
The roof looks great.
The roof is
Yes.
gorgeous,
Great.
so pretty, but it kind of, you see the pretty roof and then you look at the rest and it really highlights.
I know.
It's not consistently sad anymore.
You get a new mansion, you have to redo the living room.
Exactly. Our concessionaire for 2023, when do those?
We'll
that-
start doing bids.
Okay.
I just have to revisit whether or not we actually gave Nikki an opportunity for 2 or 3, or if it was just 2. If it's 3, we'll just continue on with the
Okay.
third.
Whether she bid
I just have to
those.
look at the language that
Okay.
we did last year.
Okay.
Oh, what's going on again?
Yes, we do.
I like the inventory list that you guys put together.
Yeah, I thought that was great too.
Yep, that was
Um,
great too.
I had a couple of questions on it.
Sure. I expect that there will be.
Yeah, this is
There's-
wonderful.
It's great to have it, and it's great to have the number. For Reed Beach, he didn't put the kayak racks on there. He did say it was by the dog signs, but he didn't list the kayak rack
Right.
as something separate. for
That would
some
be
reason.
I noticed, I already started making notes.
And if
from
he
his-
could write the number of kayaks or whatever slots
Yep.
that are for each kayak rack set up at Reed Beach and Century. I like that he has the number of picnic tables, but one of the things we noticed on our parks tour was that they're all mismatched. If there's a way to kind of figure out, like,
The guys have already started.
Yeah, I think the guys
Started
already
doing
started
that.
moving them
Right.
around.
they're moving them around? Okay, so so when you do that, we'll have a better idea of, like, so the number might change.
I don't know if the number will change, but they're trying to match picnic tables around town. So we'll certainly have, like, for instance, I made notes in here too, like, 2 additional new picnic benches from ARPA money, at this site, just so that when we look at this inventory, we'll see that there were 2 in 2022 that were new.
And also, if we could do that with the benches too,
Yeah.
because I think that was another situation.
Yeah, and this started when Pam and we were talking about signage, because you guys know I have like a bug
Yeah.
about all this random signage, and I said, gee, it would be so great if someday we could just get an inventory of each park, and like, how many signs are there, and signs for what, and whatever, and then he did this, which is so awesome. And it needs, some cleaning up. I was
Right.
wondering, is there any way he could put it into a spreadsheet? sheet instead?
Well, this is an old document. So this document's been
Okay.
around a long time and we've been updating through the
Okay.
years. So I just had him send him out to re-update it.
Okay,
So
because then you could have either, the parks across the top and different things, so like there would be picnic tables, Weed Beach for, whatever. And then signage, you can have sub-K, do we have a, sign related to dogs at every park or not? Do we have a no smoking sign at every park or not? And then it would be easy to kind of go through and then see
Yeah, it's a good idea.
where we
Well, the
have.
interesting thing is then you lose a little bit of like, the information.
No, I like that too. So
You know, I
maybe
like
have
that
kind
it's
of both
acres
ways.
and-
But picnic
Yes.
tables, like she's saying, it's great to know how many there are. and they
Absolutely.
have that number.
Yeah,
Right.
we could just put that on the comment section.
Yeah, there could be a comment section, but no, I love the acquired and it's awesome. I don't want to
Yeah, no,
anything
no,
other than
this
think
is
it's
so great.
awesome, but I just think, if I just want to sit here and say, okay, do we have a no smoking sign at every park? You have to
Right.
kind of plunk through this.
And I do like what Anthony did too. He's the one who came back and had,
Suggestions.
additional things to look at.
I love that.
suggestions, Yeah.
Those are great.
Yeah, no,
by the
it's
way.
so good, so good, so good.
I think we have a water fountain at Weed Beach too, don't we?
I changed that.
Yeah.
And I updated that, the new one with ARPA money. It was brought to my attention that, the children's play equipment area was not correct. Patty let me know that it's 2. And of course, I added that it will be updated in, 2023 or 2024. So,
And the free
basketball
libraries.
court at Weed Beach is new as of 2021, so yeah, we're gonna,
Yeah, but just breaking it down, and it gets very granular, because like trash bins, you can look at, okay, well, how come this park has 12 trash bins and this one only has 2, right, or
so
whatever.
we'll
maybe it was
continue.
12
As long as I have
also.
Anthony, I don't know how he's been applying
great.
for positions, so I
Aw.
don't know how long we'll have him.
Okay.
but
That's great.
Yeah, see if he can rework the format.
Super duper. Okay, anything else for him?
Nope, nothing else for me.
Okay, trucking along pretty good here. Okay, a few different things. One I was gonna touch on was the town park inventory, but we just did that, so that's done. I did wanna let everybody know that Sarah DeMarc has resigned from the commission effective immediately. Her term was coming up this March anyway. She and I spoke back in November, and she was like, I basically can't make any more meetings between now and then, and her just personal schedule's changed and all, so she's resigned immediately, so that way we can at least get the process going, so. Send an
She's
email thanking
working.
for her service. and
She's working.
She's working part-time and just different things going on. So I did want to let everybody know that. The Pear Tree Point Building Committee did present the approved CTD plan to the selectmen on December 19th. We elected to kind of go over sort of, a little bit of the genesis of the project and really what the plans that went to CTD were and what the issues were, because most of the selectmen now weren't selectmen back when this got started. So it was really very much of an educational meeting. Dan Biggs did make the trip down from the Albany area where, as you all know, he lives, and presented along with Craig Flaherty. So we had a really good, very professional presentation. If you want, you guys can go back and watch it. It was December 19th. I was there, of course, along with Pam and also Tom Bell, who is the former harbor master and is now the Commodore of the Daring Boat Club, was there. Bill Cavers, who is the chair of the Coastal Advisory Committee, was there, as well as John Keena, who is the current harbor master, because they're all kind of really critical stakeholders in this whole process. Bill got up and spoke and talked about how the Coastal Commission, he found a letter from, it was like 2011, that the then chair, Sandy McDonald, sent, saying, the boat ramp isn't right, we've done a lot of research, we've talked to state resources, the pitch is wrong, and really talked about how this has been lingering out there, et cetera. So the selectman asked a number of questions. I don't think any of us really walked out of there feeling like we could kind of read the room in terms of what their thinking was, but we certainly gave them, a really good, thorough, and very professional report, Craig. And then he did a lot of that for us, but really went through all, the multi-years and how the flooding events are going to change, and he really did cover all of that in great detail. So I want to let you know that did take place. The selectmen are starting the budget process, and what they do is they schedule a series of evenings where they go through the what's called the administrator's budget. So to just regroup, Pam put in the budget, submitted the budget that we all voted on. And then our town administrator, Kate Bush, takes all of the budgets, and then she will make adjustments that she feels should be made.
While she's working with the finance director and her selectman.
Right. And then it goes, the administrator's budget goes to the selectmen to decide upon, and then comes their budget. So they will be having their kind of workshop meetings for all the different departments later this month and slipping in early February. So the budget meeting where they will be discussing Parks and Rec is on Tuesday, January 31st at 5:30. Pam and I will certainly be there.
It's 5. Is it 5:30?
I saw 5:30 somewhere, and I know you put 5 in a text, so we should
Okay,
verify
yeah,
that, but I
yeah.
thought what I saw, okay, it said 5:30. but
You
we'll
said
verify
the
that.
31st?
The 31st, which is a Tuesday. You know, I'm hoping that, I don't think it's the kind of meeting where there's like public comment, it's more of a workshop-y type structure, but, you know, I'd expect certainly Pam and I will be there to answer questions. But I just think that the presence of commission members and the RTM Parks and Rec Committee is just important to be there and say we support the budget. So if it fits into your schedule, we'll confirm. Did you confirm that?
I'm gonna look
You're
it
gonna
up.
look, okay. So that is that. And Coastal Commission did not meet this month. We're off kind of over the winter because the water's cold. Nobody's in the water. And lastly, as was in Pam's report, we did present our proposal for the Wheat Beach Meadow and Trail project to the Darien Foundation on Monday, January 9th. And Pam and I are very pleased to report that they came back super quickly and have given us a written confirmation of their willingness to support the project for between $250,000 and $350,000.
That's awesome.
Wow.
There are contingencies.
250
There's always
to what?
contingencies.
350,
250 to
350.
not to exceed 350.
Not to
Not to
exceed
exceed,
350.
good, great.
So there are contingencies, there's a lot to work through. Probably the most significant one is effectively the offer is good if the town funds the project in the coming fiscal year. So it's just not an open-ended, like, whenever you guys get around to it. There's definitely a timetable on it, so.
Wow, did you all? That's helpful.
Yeah.
That's a huge vote of confidence
Yes,
in
it
the
is.
project and
Mhm.
just
It
helps
is.
Yeah.
show support
It
for
is.
the project.
But again, it's not a done deal. I can't be sure that this is gonna make it through the selectmen, so I'm sure that will be a topic of conversation on the 31st, among other things, along with, you know, fair trees. So we have a lot of asks in there, but I think it's great news. It's really.
And I will
really
add that
exciting.
I did have to go back to Sarah just to see if they would be flexible to change the language in their grant to allow flexibility with the boards to pull the project out of the budget if necessary, if that's where they would want to go to bond it. So they seem willing to do that, but they're going to go back to their boards about that because in the contingency, in their grant, it was really indicative that it would stay in the 23-24 budget year.
Because of their anniversary, they're trying to pull it together with their 20th anniversary.
The letter they issued is very professionally done. It's not just, hey guys, this is great, we'll give you some, it was very, very professionally done. And the way they wrote it tied it to the budget, but those of us who've spent time kind of in town government know that there's there's the budget, but then if something's if the funds are bonded, it's really not in the budget. Or the town could say, you know what, we've got a lot of excess general fund reserve, we're just gonna take out of our existing fund reserve, and you're not putting it in the budget at all. So I think it's really to cover that the town would have the flexibility to come up with their portion and decide, you know, we don't want to tell the Board of Finance, well, this is how you have to do it, but to maintain that intention that this is something that they're willing to support if it's really done by the, you know, that it's or done or going like by June of '24. So it just, you know, in other words, they said, you know, that you would need to come back and ask again. So it's just tightening up that language.
If they didn't approve it, it would lapse.
It would lapse. So, anyway, but I think it's just tightening up that. It's just sort of a mutual understanding, given the nuances of government finance, I believe is really what the issue was. And I can understand why Kate could.
They also just don't want their money in limbo if the
Of course,
project is
right,
moving.
Of course, because they have,
They'd like to use it elsewhere.
of
And I
course.
will add that I did meet with the community fund today, representatives of that, and the youth, yeah, the task force. The woman who, she does both, Emily Larkin, she was great. And super excited to bring this back to her board for some support on the project as well, so.
But they don't fund. You just mean, the
No,
community fund of Darien doesn't donate.
They have,
Just to be clear.
I guess they have funding that they would,
They have grants.
yes, they have grants.
They do a certain amount of grants. Yeah, I do a lot of work with them.
Right,
Yeah. they
So
do-
they're-
No, I know, I'm
and
involved,
the
but
youth
that's-
task force that also have state grant money that they're working with. They have $125,000 that received from the state to work with the youth in certain ways. And so they're just excited to offer this to the boards if there's any ideas they may have and how that would work with the funding that they've received.
Okay, I guess my question is to be clear. I don't view them as then also adding money into this project,
I feel differently.
into the physical layout of the project.
I didn't walk, she didn't walk away making me feel that way. She walked away saying that she's anxious to bring this to her board for some type of financial support.
They've funded capital projects before.
It would be probably up to.
Right, we're not talking about the
Yeah.
same level,
Yeah.
but it could be on a smaller level.
Yeah, their capital projects are
Right.
more in service of people in need of care, mental health care,
Right,
all of
but
that.
also
That's all, I'm just trying
They've
to.
expanded,
When
they
we say
said.
put that out there, Janet King is not gonna be putting money towards the physical plant, so to speak, of Weed Beach.
I hear what you're
Okay.
saying, right, but they've also said they've expanded how they have been servicing in the past to include areas that are safe for kids to hang out in, or, so there's different avenues that they're looking at, is how I understand it. So she's gonna get back to me after they bring it to their boards.
Okay.
So that's all I had. Thought I'd end on a
Positive note.
positive note.
I would say so.
Excellent. Good for you. That is it. So we can, if there's anything else, we can, is there something else?
Well, I was gonna adjourn, but
Oh, just one quick comment, circling back to your call that you got complaining about the noise.
Oh, the pickleball.
I did a little research while I was listening, and the three things that they do for pickleball noise, the number one thing is called Acoustifence. And
It's called, I'm sorry, what?
Acoustifence,
Acoustic.
and it's sold in a roll for 30 feet roll is like $800, 6 feet high, and it's like a vinyl. It's a special material that absorbs noise, but it's made, it's an 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's hung by grommets, so you could hang it on the
Right
fence.
on the fence.
And you even make a specialty one that has like ivy growing on it, so it blends in with the scenery, and it seems to be relatively inexpensive. Quick way to go. And the other two were to do a natural tree barrier and reorient the courts themselves, which is not really what you want to do. But in thinking about doing future pickleball courts, the orientation affects the noise as well. Just a simple, maybe a simple fix to ongoing complaints, I guess.
Thanks, Kim. Great research, right? Yeah. Right on.
We're ready to adjourn? Susan, second? Mary Louise, all in favor? Okay, that's right. Thank you, 79.
Pam,